The patrol route was quiet, almost too quiet. Captain Elias sat in the command chair of the Earth vessel Valiant, staring at the faint glow of stars through the wide viewing screen. Space was usually alive with signals, chatter, and the faint hum of distant colonies, but here, near the edge of known space, there was only silence. Elias did not mind silence. He had served the fleet for more than 10 years, and silence often meant safety. Yet, he also knew that silence could hide danger. Too many reports had come from the frontier. Missing ships, strange readings, colonies that simply stopped answering calls. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rena, his second in command, "I'm picking up a weak distress beacon. It's faint, but it's there." Elias leaned forward. "Location?" "Dead moon, 600,000 kilometers from here," Rena replied. Her voice carried a mix of curiosity and worry. "The beacon is old. Very old. It shouldn't even be functioning." The captain thought for a moment. "Set course. Let's take a look." The Valiant turned, its engines humming softly as it crossed the void. As they approached the barren moon, its surface came into view. Gray, cracked, lifeless. No colony lights, no stations, nothing but rock and shadows. The beacon was located near the ruins of an ancient outpost. Its structure was broken and half buried, in dust. "Strange," murmured Rena. "No records of a human station here. Could be alien." Elias studied the image carefully. "Prepare a landing team. I'll go myself." The crew stirred at his words. The captain rarely left the ship for small investigations, but Elias trusted his instincts. Something about the signal felt different. The shuttle descended to the surface. Dust swirled as its landing struts touched the ground. Elias, in his dark uniform and helmet, stepped out first. The air was thin and unbreathable, but his suit systems kept him safe. The ruins loomed ahead, walls cracked, metal supports bent, and strange carvings faintly visible under the dust. The beacon still blinked weakly, its soft light pulsing like a heartbeat. "Captain," said Sergeant Doran, a soldier who had joined the landing team, "should we shut it down? Could be a trap." Elias shook his head. "Not yet. Let's see what's here." They moved deeper into the ruins. Broken doors hung loose, corridors stretched into shadow, and silence pressed down on them. Their footsteps echoed faintly. Then, Elias heard something, soft like a breath, a faint sound that did not belong to machines. "Did you hear that?" he asked. The team froze. Doran lifted his weapon. Rena, who had insisted on joining, glanced nervously at the captain. The sound came again, this time clearer. A weak cry. Elias moved quickly, following the sound into a dark chamber. There, half covered by debris, lay a small figure. It was not human. The figure was fragile, with pale blue skin that glowed faintly under the helmet lights. Its eyes, closed tight, were larger than human eyes, and its hair shimmered silver white. The figure looked young, almost childlike. "By the stars," Rena whispered. That's a Zayari." The name struck the air like thunder. The Zayari were spoken of in whispers across the galaxy. Once, long ago, they had been a powerful species, but history said they had been exiled after great wars. To most, they were a myth, a shadow from the past. Yet here, before them, lay a living Zayari child. "She's alive," Elias said after checking the faint pulse. "Weak, but alive." Doran frowned. "Captain, you know what the Council says. If the Zayari return—" "I know what the Council says," Elias interrupted, his voice firm. "But look at her. She's a child, helpless and alone." The girl stirred slightly, opening her eyes. They were bright, glowing with an inner light like stars trapped in water. She looked at Elias with fear, but also with something else. "Hope. Please." Her voice was soft, broken, yet clear in the translator system. "Don't leave me." Elias felt the weight of the galaxy pressing on him. He knew the rules. He knew what the Council would demand if they learned of this, but he also knew what it meant to abandon a life in need. "No one is leaving you," he said gently. "You're safe now." They carried her back to the shuttle. On board the Valiant, the medical team rushed to stabilize her. She was malnourished, dehydrated, and her body carried scars of both injury and neglect. Elias stood beside the medical bed as the ship's doctor worked. "She's strong," the doctor said, adjusting equipment. "Stronger than I expected. But she's been through a lot. She must have been here for years." Rena shook her head. "How could a child survive here alone?" The girl, weak but awake, answered softly. "Not alone. Once. Others. Gone. Now." The word sent chills through the crew. What others? Were there more Zayari? What happened to them? Elias leaned closer. "What's your name?" She blinked, her silver hair falling across her face. "Lyra." As hours passed, the crew whispered among themselves. Some feared her presence. Others, moved by her fragile state, felt pity. Doran spoke plainly. "Captain, with respect, we cannot keep her. If the council finds out, we'll all be branded traitors. You know what the Zayari name means. War, destruction, exile." Elias met his gaze calmly. "And if we abandon her, what does that make us?" Doran had no answer. Rena stepped forward. "Captain, I don't know what the right choice is, but I saw her eyes. She's not a monster. She's just a child." The ship fell quiet. The decision was clear, though heavy. Elias turned to the crew. "We keep her safe. Until we know the truth, she stays under our protection." Later, as the Valiant resumed its journey, Elias stood at the viewing screen once more. Stars stretched endless before him, cold and distant. Behind him, in the medical bay, rested Lyra, the exiled alien girl who should not have survived. Fate had placed her in their path. He could not yet see where that path would lead, but deep inside he knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not forgive him for what he had done. Perhaps his own people would turn against him. But Elias also knew one thing with certainty. Saving Lyra was the right choice. And sometimes in the vast silence of space, doing the right thing mattered more than all the rules of the galaxy. The journey back to human space was tense. The crew of the Valiant carried out their duties, but every corridor buzzed with whispers about the alien girl. Some called her a danger, others a mystery, but everyone agreed on one thing. Bringing her home would change everything. Captain Elias spent much of his time near the medical bay. Lyra was recovering quickly, her strength surprising even the doctors. Her pale blue skin looked healthier now, and her silver hair shone in the soft lights of the room. She often asked questions about the ship, about the humans around her, and about the stars outside. Elias answered patiently, though a storm brewed in his mind. He knew what awaited them when they returned. The council would not see Lyra as a child. They would see her as a threat. One evening, Lyra sat up in bed, looking out at the stars through a small viewing panel. Her voice was soft. "You saved me. But why? You know who I am." Elias pulled a chair closer. "Because leaving you there would have been wrong. You didn't choose where you were born. You didn't choose exile. You deserve a chance." Lyra tilted her head. Others did not think so. They said the Zayari must be forgotten, that the galaxy fears us. "The galaxy fears what it doesn't understand," Elias said firmly, "and sometimes fear makes people cruel." Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her star-like eyes full of something he could not name. Then she whispered, "I will not forget your kindness." When the Valiant finally crossed into human territory, the expected signal came through. A patrol frigate demanded they dock at a nearby station for inspection. Rena approached Elias on the bridge. "They'll find her, Captain. We can't hide her forever." "I don't plan to," Elias replied. His voice was steady, but his heart was heavy. "We must face this, not run from it." The frigate escorted them to Haven Prime, a large station orbiting a bright blue star. The station bustled with trade ships, patrol craft, and colonies of civilians. As the Valiant docked, officials from the Galactic Council boarded. Their uniforms were sharp, their faces stern. Elias stood tall as they entered the bridge. Behind him, Lyra remained quiet, her hands folded nervously. Counselor Vera, a woman with cold gray eyes, stepped forward. Captain Elias, reports from your crew confirm that you have brought aboard a living Zayari. Do you deny this? I do not deny it, Elias said calmly. She was found abandoned and close to death. I chose to save her. Murmurs rippled through the officials. Vera's eyes narrowed. You knowingly broke protocol. The Zayari were exiled for crimes that nearly destroyed entire systems. Bringing one back endangers every colony within our reach. For this, you and your crew must answer to the Council. Lyra flinched at her words, but Elias stepped forward, shielding her with his presence. Counselor, she is a child. She carries no weapons, no army, no threat. She deserves protection, not punishment. Vera's expression hardened. The law is clear. The Zayari are not to set foot in our space. She must be removed. If not, both you and she will face execution. Gasps filled the bridge. Rena clenched her fists but stayed silent. Doran muttered under his breath, unable to accept what he had just heard. Elias's voice, however, did not waver. If our laws cannot see the difference between a child and an army, then perhaps our laws have lost their wisdom. The counselors exchanged sharp glances. Vera finally said, The High Council will decide. Until then, the girl is to be kept under guard. The trial was set quickly. News spread across the colonies like fire. A Zayari child lives, shouted the broadcasts. Some panicked, fearing war would rise again. Others demanded justice and shouted for her destruction. But a small number of voices, quiet but firm, asked a different question. If she is only a child, why should she die for the sins of her ancestors? On the day of the hearing, the grand chamber of the council was filled with hundreds of leaders, officers, and citizens. Giant screens broadcast the event across human space. Elias entered the chamber with Lyra at his side. She looked small in the vast hall, her silver hair catching the light, her eyes wide but unafraid. She walked with quiet dignity, even as whispers and hostile stares followed her. Counselor Vera spoke first. We are gathered here to address a violation of galactic law. Captain Elias of the Valiant has brought a Zayari into our space. History records the destruction and terror of their kind. For the safety of all, the Council must act. Elias stepped forward to the central podium. His voice carried through the chamber. I saved a child's life, that is the only truth. She has harmed no one. She carries no guilt. To condemn her is not justice, it is fear. And fear cannot guide us. Murmurs rose again, some angry, some uncertain. Lyra, to everyone's surprise, stepped forward. Her voice was soft, but the translators carried her words clearly. I am Lyra. I do not know the wars you speak of. I only know pain, loneliness, and kindness, the kindness of one who saved me. If you wish to punish me, then punish me for what I have done, not for what others did long before I was born. For a moment the chamber was silent, but Vera's voice cut through. Her words are clever, but do not be fooled. The Zayari carry secrets in their blood. What if she grows and brings back the power of her people? Will you risk humanity's future for her? The chamber erupted with arguments. Some shouted for her removal. Others called for mercy. Elias stood firm, his eyes scanning the leaders. If we choose fear today, then we lose what makes us human. We claim to be builders of peace, explorers of the stars. What are those claims worth if we destroy a child simply because of her name? The hearing ended with no final decision. The council demanded more time, but the atmosphere was clear. Many wanted Lyra gone. That night aboard the Valiant, the crew gathered quietly in the mess hall. Rena spoke first. Captain, if the council rules against her, what will you do? Elias looked around at the faces of his crew. I will not hand her over, whatever the cost. Lyra, sitting nearby, listened with wide eyes. For the first time since they had found her, tears shone on her cheeks. You risk so much for me. Elias placed a hand gently on her shoulder. Some lives are worth any risk, Yours is one of them. Outside the viewing windows, the stars burned silently. The fate of the alien girl and the man who saved her now rested in the hands of a council, blinded by fear. But fate, Elias knew, was not so easily bound by laws and politics. Something greater was moving in the galaxy, something that would soon prove that the girl they condemned might be the one who could save them all. And in that quiet moment, though the future was uncertain, Elias made a silent vow. No matter what the council decided, Lyra would not face it alone. The Valiant floated in orbit above Haven Prime like a silent witness to the storm below. News of the Zayari child had spread beyond human colonies to neighboring worlds. Some sent warnings, some sent demands, and a few sent messages of quiet support. The galaxy was awake and it was watching. Inside the ship, Captain Elias stood at the viewing window, his reflection clear against the stars. His thoughts were heavy. The council had delayed judgment, but the delay was not mercy. It was fear. Fear of what the child might mean, and fear of the past that still haunted them all. Behind him, footsteps echoed. It was Rena. She stood quietly for a moment, then said, "She's been asking questions again. Dreams, she calls them. Strange ones." Elias turned. "Dreams?" Rena nodded. "She says she sees stars she's never visited, places none of us know, and she describes them with details too exact to be imagination." Elias frowned. "Show me." In the medical bay, Lyra sat cross-legged on her bed. Her silver hair spilled over her shoulders, and her bright eyes seemed distant, as if watching something far away. When Elias entered, she looked up. "Captain, I saw it again." He pulled a chair close. "Tell me." Her voice was soft but steady. "A place of light and stone. A great hall, broken now, but once strong. I see symbols carved into the walls. They are my people's symbols, though I never learned them. And there is a sound, like thunder, but it comes from the sky itself." Elias leaned forward. "Do you know where this place is?" Lyra shook her head. "No, but I feel it, as if it is calling me." Rena exchanged a glance with the captain. "Captain, with respect, these sound like memories. But how can a child carry memories of a place she's never been?" The ship's doctor, who had been listening, stepped closer. "I have been running tests. Zayari biology is unique. They carry something we do not. A genetic memory, information, locked in their very blood, passed from one generation to the next. Perhaps what she sees are not dreams, but memories of her ancestors." Elias sat back slowly. "So she remembers what her people saw." "Not just what they saw," the doctor said. "What they feared, what they fought, what they tried to protect. She may hold secrets the council has forgotten." Lyra lowered her eyes. "Secrets that make them hate me." "No," Elias said, firmly. "Secrets that make you important." The following days were restless. Lyra's visions grew stronger. She spoke of stars arranged in patterns, of hidden vaults buried beneath ruins, and of warnings etched into stone. Beware the old machines. Beware the endless hunger. The words chilled the crew. One evening, Elias gathered his officers in the strategy room. A star map flickered on the screen, displaying the coordinates Lyra had described. "These systems match places at the edge of old records," Rena explained. "Worlds abandoned centuries ago. No colonies remain there." "Why would her people remember them?" Doran asked. Elias's eyes hardened. "Because something happened there. Something the council doesn't want us to know." That night, as the ship lay in silent orbit, Elias visited Lyra again. She was awake, staring at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "The dreams do not let me rest. I hear voices, my people's voices. They are afraid." Elias sat beside her. "Afraid of what?" Lyra's eyes shimmered, with faint light. "Not of humans, not of war, of something else, something that comes from beyond the stars. They called it the Devourer." The word lingered in the air like a shadow. Elias frowned. The council never spoke of this. Not once. Lyra whispered, "That is why they exiled us. Not because we were evil, but because we carried the memory of what they wanted to forget." The next morning, Elias requested a private audience with Counselor Vera. He was granted a secure channel. Her cold face appeared on the screen. "Captain," she said sharply, "you walk a dangerous path. The more you protect that child, the more you endanger your people." Elias met her gaze without fear. "Tell me the truth. What do you know of the old machines, the Devourer?" Vera's eyes narrowed, but for the first time, her calm broke. "You should not speak that name." "So it is true," Elias pressed. "You know, the Zayari remembered and you exiled them to hide it." Vera's silence was answer enough. At last she said coldly, "Some truths are too dangerous, better forgotten." Elias shook his head. "You cannot bury the past. It always returns." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the captain in silence. That evening, Lyra's visions struck harder than ever. She collapsed in the corridor, trembling as images flooded her mind. The crew carried her to the infirmary, where she clutched Elias's hand with desperate strength. "They're coming," she gasped. "The machines, the ones that destroyed worlds. I see them waking in the dark, rising again." Her words sent fear through everyone who heard them. The crew gathered in the mess hall that night, voices low and worried. "If she's right," Rena said, "then the galaxy is in more danger than we ever knew. And the council is blind." Elias stood at the center of the room. "The council may choose fear and silence, but we cannot. If there is even a chance her visions are true, then we must prepare." Doran frowned. "Prepare how? We're one ship against whatever this is." "We are not helpless," Elias said firmly. "We have knowledge now, and knowledge is the first weapon." Over the following days, Elias allowed Lyra to guide them. With her visions as a map, the Valiant set course toward forgotten worlds at the edge of the frontier. There they hoped to uncover what the council had buried. Their first stop was a barren world with ancient ruins carved into black stone. The symbols matched those Lyra had described. As the crew explored, Lyra walked among the ruins with strange familiarity. Her hand touched the carvings and she whispered words in a language long dead. "What does it say?" Elias asked. Lyra's voice trembled. "It says, 'The Devourer sleeps, but it will not sleep forever. When the stars darken, it will rise again.'" A shiver ran through the crew. On the flight back to the ship, Lyra sat quietly beside Elias. Her small frame looked fragile, yet her presence carried a weight greater than her years. "Captain," she said softly, "they will not believe me. The council will say I am dangerous. They will say my visions are lies. Then we'll find proof," Elias answered. "And when we do, no one will be able to deny it." Lyra looked at him, her star-bright eyes filled with trust. "You believe me." "I do," Elias said without hesitation. In the silence that followed, Elias realized something. He was no longer just protecting a child. He was protecting the key to the galaxy's survival, and whether the council liked it or not, fate had already chosen its course. Outside, in the endless dark, unseen by human eyes, something stirred. A faint signal echoed across the void. Cold, mechanical and ancient, it spread like a whisper through the stars. The Devourer was waking, and soon the galaxy would remember why the Zayari had been feared, and why humanity's choice would matter more than ever. The Valiant drifted through the cold dark between stars, carrying secrets that could shake the galaxy. Inside, the crew worked in silence, each person weighed down by what they had learned. Lyra's visions had revealed the truth. The Devourer, an ancient enemy thought forgotten, was stirring once again. Captain Elias stood in the strategy room with his officers. A star map flickered before them, glowing with points of light. Red markers showed the ruins they had visited, places where warnings had been carved into stone. Blue markers showed human colonies, bright with life and industry. "They're too close," Elias muttered. His eyes followed the path Lyra had described. The Devourer's awakening was spreading toward inhabited space. Rena spoke carefully. If the Council refuses to believe us, then every colony along this path will be blind to the danger, and when the Devourer arrives they won't stand a chance, Elias finished. The room fell silent. Then Doran, always blunt, slammed his fist on the table. So what do we do? We're one ship, one crew. We can't fight machines older than civilizations. Elias looked around at his people. Maybe we can't defeat them alone, but we can't stand by either. If the Council will not act, then we must. In the medical bay, Lyra sat quietly, her eyes half closed. The visions came more often now, flashing through her mind like storms. She saw burning skies, dead worlds, and endless swarms of machines crawling across planets like locusts. But she also saw something else: patterns, strategies, weaknesses. When Elias entered, she opened her eyes. They are moving faster. The Devourer spreads like fire. Then we'll move faster too, Elias said. Lyra hesitated. Captain, if you keep me with you, the Council will call you traitor. They will hunt you. Are you ready for that? Elias knelt, so his eyes were level with hers. I chose the moment I found you. Whatever the Council says, it changes nothing. For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Then she whispered, You believe more in me than my own people ever did. The first sign of the Devourer came sooner than expected. A mining colony on the edge of human space stopped answering transmissions. At first, officials dismissed it as a systems failure, but Elias knew better. The Valiant arrived days later. What they found chilled them to the bone. The colony was gone. Not destroyed in fire, not bombed into rubble. Gone. The buildings were hollow shells, stripped of metal, stripped of power, stripped even of life support. It was as if the machines had eaten the world itself. Floating in orbit, the crew saw them. Shadows moving across the surface, crawling like insects but larger than ships. Their forms were jagged and shifting, made of dark metal that pulsed with faint light. The Devourer, Rena whispered. One of the creatures lifted its head, and though it had no eyes, it seemed to look directly at them. Then, with terrifying speed, the swarm launched from the surface. Evasive! Elias shouted. The Valiant spun away as beams of white energy cut through the dark. The shield screamed under impact. The crew fired back, but their weapons barely slowed the swarm. They're adapting, Doran growled. Every time we hit them, they shift their armor. Lyra stood on the bridge, her eyes glowing faintly. Don't fight them head on. They learn too quickly. You must trick them. Elias trusted her instinct. Divert power to engines. Set a course toward the asteroid belt. The Valiant darted into the dense field of rocks. The swarm followed, scattering through the belt. Elias waited, his hand tight on the controls. Now. The crew fired charges into the asteroids, triggering a chain of explosions. Massive rocks collided, crushing many of the pursuing machines. The rest scattered. Confused, the Valiant escaped, engines blazing. Hours later, silence returned to the ship. The crew was shaken but alive. That was only a fraction of their swarm, Rena said grimly. If more are coming, then no colony will survive. Elias nodded. Which means we must find a way to fight back. Not just run. Lyra stepped forward. Her small voice carried strength. There is a way. My visions show me fragments, old weapons hidden by my people. They feared the Devourer, but they built ways to resist them. Elias turned to her. Where? She closed her eyes. Near a dying star. A vault buried beneath the surface of a world long abandoned. If we find it, we may have a chance. The Council, however, had other plans. When word reached them that the Valiant had engaged unknown machines, they declared Elias a fugitive. Messages blared across every channel. Captain Elias of the vessel Valiant has defied Council orders, spread fear and sheltered an enemy. His ship is to be seized and he is to be brought in, alive or dead. The crew listened in silence as the broadcast played. Doran spat on the floor. Alive or dead, they've already judged us. Rena looked to Elias. What now, Captain? Do we run? Do we fight them too? Elias's voice was calm, though his eyes burned with resolve. We don't fight them. We show them the truth. If we survive long enough to find that vault, we'll have proof. Proof they can't deny. Lyra's small hand gripped the captain's sleeve. They will hate you for standing with me, Elias. Placed his hand gently over hers, then let them hate, but they cannot stop the truth from coming. The chase began soon after. Council ships moved to intercept the Valiant, while the swarm of the Devourer spread deeper into the frontier. Elias steered a dangerous path, dodging both enemies, always one step ahead. Through it all, Lyra's visions grew clearer. She guided them through forgotten jump points, hidden paths in the stars that only her people had once known. At last they reached it, the dying star she had described. Its light was faint, its surface cracked with storms of fire. Around it orbited a single world, black and broken, its surface littered with ruins. The vault, Lyra whispered. The Valiant descended into the atmosphere, landing near a canyon carved with ancient symbols. The crew stepped out, weapons ready, hearts heavy with both fear and hope. Deep inside the canyon they found it, a sealed chamber of smooth metal, untouched by time. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface, the same warnings they had seen before. Lyra placed her hand on the door. It opened with a sound like a sigh. Inside lay rows of machines, not of the Devourer, but of Zayari design. Sleek, silver, and still. Weapons, but not for conquest. Weapons designed to defend. This is it, Elias breathed. Proof that your people didn't fall to greed. They tried to protect the galaxy. Lyra nodded slowly. And now it is our turn. But before they could celebrate, alarms blared on the Valiant. The Devourer had followed them, and worse, so had council ships. On the horizon, dark swarms rose into the sky, while sleek council cruisers descended from orbit. Caught between two enemies, Elias realized the truth. The real battle was about to begin. He looked at Lyra, her silver hair glowing faintly in the ruin's light. She met his gaze without fear. Fate brought us here, she whispered, and fate will not let us end so easily. Elias drew a deep breath, his voice steady. Then we make our stand. For her. For all of us. The stars above burned like watchful eyes as the clash of destiny drew near. The canyon shook as the sky above split open with fire. From orbit, the council fleet descended in perfect formation, sleek silver ships blazing with energy. From the ground, a dark swarm rose like a living storm, the Devourer pushing forward, with hunger that could not be reasoned with. The Valiant stood between them, half hidden in the shadows of the ruins, its crew preparing for what could only be called an impossible fight. Captain Elias stood on the ridge, his eyes scanning the horizon. On one side, the council cruisers lowered their weapons, aiming at him and his ship. On the other, endless machines poured over the broken land, claws digging into rock, eyes burning with faint, cruel light. They'll kill each other, Doran muttered. His rough voice carried frustration. The council doesn't even see the real enemy. Elias shook his head. No. The council fears what they don't understand, and the Devourer, it fears nothing at all. Lyra stepped forward. Her pale face glowed softly in the dim light of the dying star. She looked at Elias, then at the council fleet above. We can't run anymore. Not from them. Not from fate. On the Valiant's bridge, alarm screamed. Rena reported quickly, her voice tight. Multiple signals from the swarm, hundreds, maybe more. The council fleet is locking weapons on us. They'll fire the moment they're in range. Elias's jaw tightened. Then we give them something they can't ignore. Lyra, you said this vault holds weapons. Can they fight the Devourer? Lyra closed her eyes, her mind reaching into the vault's memory. Symbols and blueprints flickered across her vision. Yes, my people built these machines to fight the swarm. They were never used, but they will answer to me. Then wake them, Elias said. The chamber beneath the canyon roared to life. The ancient machines stirred from their slumber, their sleek silver frames rising one by one. They were smaller than the Devourer, but graceful, with wings that shimmered like crystal and weapons that hummed with a quiet, deadly energy. Lyra stood at the center of the chamber, her hands raised. Her voice echoed, speaking in the forgotten tongue of her people. The machines responded, their eyes glowing with pale blue light. "They are ready," she whispered. When the first wave of the Devourer charged into the canyon, they met not silence, but resistance. The Silver Guardians launched forward, moving with speed and precision, striking with beams of light that cut through the swarm. The ground shook, the sky burned, the battle had begun. From the ridge, the council commander watched with shock. On his screen, the Devourer swarmed in numbers greater than any report had described. Yet what stunned him most were the Zayari machines, fighting with purpose beside humans. "This is impossible," one officer whispered. "No," the commander said, his eyes narrowing. "This is betrayal. Elias has allied with an enemy. They must be destroyed." Orders were given. The council cruisers began to descend. Elias knew what was coming even before the first council volley lit the sky. His ship shuddered under impact, its shields straining. "They're firing on us," Rena cried. "Of course they are," Doran growled. "Blind fools." Elias made his choice quickly. "We can't fight both. Target the swarm only. Show the council who the real enemy is." The Valiant roared as its cannons opened fire, striking the Devourer at the edges of the battlefield. At the same time, the Silver Guardian soared upward, clashing with the dark swarm in a storm of light and shadow. Lyra was the heart of it all. Standing in the vault, she guided the silver machines as if they were extensions of her own spirit. Every movement, every strike was hers. She fought not for her people who had cast her out, but for the crew that had chosen her, for the humans who believed when no one else did. But each vision cost her strength. The link burned in her mind. She swayed, her face pale. Elias's voice came over the comm. "Lyra, stay with me. You're not alone." His words steadied her. She lifted her hands higher, pushing the Guardians into the heart of the swarm. Then came the turning point. The Devourer revealed its core. From the horizon rose a massive figure, towering above the rest. It was not like the smaller machines. This one was a fortress, a living engine of war, its chest glowing with molten energy. With each step, the ground trembled. "The Devourer Prime," Lyra whispered. Her voice shook, not with fear, but recognition. "It is their mind, their command." The Prime turned its burning gaze toward the council fleet. Beams of searing light shot upward, striking the cruisers. The sleek ships crumbled like paper, falling from the sky in flames. The council, blind in their rage, finally saw the truth. Elias opened a channel, his voice carrying across the chaos. "Council fleet, listen to me. That is your enemy, not us. Not her. If you want to live, fire on the Devourer." For a long, tense moment, silence followed. Then, slowly, the remaining cruisers shifted their aim. Weapons roared, striking the Prime. At last, humanity and the Zayari machines fought side by side. The battle raged for hours. The Valiant darted through fire, blasting swarms apart. The Silver Guardians struck in coordinated waves, carving paths through impossible odds. The council cruisers hurled their strongest weapons at the Prime, but the Devourer was relentless. For every swarm destroyed, more came. The Prime did not falter, its molten heart blazing stronger with every strike. Lyra fell to her knees, her strength fading. "It is too strong, I cannot hold them all." Elias rushed to her side, gripping her shoulders. "Then we'll strike together. You guide, I'll fight." Her eyes met his, wide with both fear and hope. Slowly, she nodded. Together they made their final gamble. Lyra directed the Guardians to open a path. Elias piloted the Valiant straight toward the Prime, weaving through waves of enemies. The ship shook violently, its hull tearing, alarms blaring, but he did not stop. "Power everything into the forward cannon," Elias ordered. Rena hesitated. "Captain, that much energy. If it fires the ship—" "Do it," Elias said firmly. The Valiant burst from the swarm, face to face with the Prime. Its molten core pulsed like a living heart. "Now!" Elias shouted. The forward cannon fired, a blinding beam of energy tearing across the battlefield. At the same moment, Lyra poured the last of her strength into the Guardians, forcing them to strike in unison. The Prime screamed, its core shattering into fragments of molten fire. The swarm faltered. One by one, the dark machines collapsed, their light fading into silence. The battlefield grew still. Silence hung heavy after the storm. The ground was littered with broken machines, both silver and dark. The sky was scarred. With wreckage, the Valiant floated, damaged but alive. Inside, the crew sat in quiet awe. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. On the ground, Elias carried Lyra from the vault. She was weak, her steps unsteady, but her eyes shone with peace. "You did it," Elias whispered. "No," she replied softly. "We did it. Together." When the council commander finally landed, he stood among the ruins, looking at Elias and Lyra. His face was hard, his voice colder still. "You disobeyed orders. You sheltered an exile. You put lives at risk." Elias met his gaze without flinching, and saved more than you can count. Without her, without the truth, every world under your care would already be ash. The commander looked at the battlefield, at the silent wreck of the Prime. He had no answer. At last, he gave a short nod. Perhaps fate had other plans. The war was not over. The Devourer would return somewhere sometime. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans and Zayari would stand together. Lyra, once an exile, now stood as a bridge between peoples. And Elias, once a captain hunted by his own, stood as the man who had believed when no one else would. As the Valiant lifted into the sky once more, its hull scarred but its spirit unbroken, the stars stretched out before them. Elias looked to Lyra, who leaned against the console, her silver hair glowing in the light of the dying star. "Where to next?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Wherever fate calls us." Together they turned their eyes to the horizon, knowing their story was only the beginning.